Grace and peace, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Thomas Talks. I am your host, Dr. T.C. Thomas. Thomas Talks, where we hope to educate you, empower you, and uplift you. I am really disturbed over the last couple of weeks that have happened in our nation surrounding the death, the murder of George Floyd. You know, it's really not about race. It's about racism. The systemic racism that continues to happen in our world to unarmed Black people. I'm disturbed because on June 1st, I watched peaceful protesters in Lafayette Park protest the injustice, the inequality of George Floyd all across the world, all 50 states. Australia, London, France, Germany, Sweden, everybody has been protesting that Black Lives Matter and that racial inequality must stop. It must end. But I watched Donald Trump come to the Rose Garden and make a speech about how he approved of peaceful protesters. And simultaneously, on the split screen, you all saw it, the officials moved in and moved peaceful protesters with pepper spray, with rubber bullets, and then they lied and said, oh, there was no tear gas. Well, the CDC has said that pepper spray is an irritant. They classified that on the same levels of tear gas. And then he says, I'm your president of law and order. I'm going to move the military in. If the governors can't do it, I will do it. And I'm going to resurrect the Insurgents Act, which is illegal because the governors must ask him to utilize military force. So that's illegal. But he determined that he was the president of law and order. And then, to add insult to injury, he walked across the street after these peaceful protesters were moved out of the way, quite physically, I might add. And he took a photo op by a church that had been damaged, the church that preaches and teaches the love of Jesus, the church that holds services so that any and everybody can come and have a place of healing, a place of redemption, and a place to pray and ask God to touch them in whatever way they need to. He held a Bible up. First it was upside down, then it was right side up. One of the reporters said, is that your Bible? He said, it's a Bible. I don't understand that one. You go figure. A Bible. And then he called in members of his cabinet, come on, to take a photo op. Many have been texting me. They've been emailing me. They've been writing me saying, Pastor, when are you going to say something on behalf? And I told them, I said, I got a comment that I'm going to make. The governors had a meeting with Donald Trump. They had a meeting and he talked about how they were weak. They needed to dominate. They needed to put people in jail for a long time. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker said, Mr. President, your rhetoric is inciting the flame of racism, not fanning it, not trying to douse it. He then attacked J.B. Pritzker and said, well, I didn't like your rhetoric for the pandemic, the way you covered the pandemic. Governor Pritzker applauded, worked to save thousands and thousands of lives of Illinois residents with the stay-at-home order, with all of what was necessary to make sure that lives matter. Not only the photo op that happened, then there's systemic racism, not just in the world, but in the police department. Then his officials say there's no systemic racism in the police department, but we consistently see unarmed African-American males killed. Now, the racism is just not discussed, it's being filmed. Innocent bystanders pled with the officer, ex-officer now, to get off of George Floyd, to let him breathe, to turn him over, check his pulse. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He kept saying, I can't breathe. They're going to kill me. I can't breathe. Then he began to call on his mother, who died 2 years previously. All of a sudden, he became unresponsive. And only when the medics pulled up is when he got off of his neck, not because he wanted to, but because the medics moved him and said, let's turn him over. And they drug him like a slab of meat onto the gurney. And now we have protests all over the world. I applaud the protesters. We've been a part of them. I applaud the protesters. In the midst of a pandemic, their voices need to be heard. Now, can I tell you that I want all of this energy for protest? I want you to be mobilized come November. I want you to take that same power in the protest and move to the polls to vote like never before. Make sure you have your driver's license, your voter ID card, your passport, your Diners Club, whatever thing else you need to have. Start that process now. Don't start it in November. Start that process now so that you can ensure that when it's time to vote, that nobody will be able to tell you that you cannot vote. When we talk about voting, that is the power that we have. Going to the polls, voting to change our elected officials so that we can have change in every office, from the presidency down to your city, state, and local leaders. That's your voice. That's your power to change. You know, it's amazing how many people now are on board. Roger Goodell, he came on board and said, we, the NFL, know that Black Lives Matter. We should have listened to our African American players when they were protesting. Roger Goodell, you are late to the party, because he did not mention the name Colin Kaepernick. 4 years ago, you all remember, Colin Kaepernick took a knee, not disgracing the flag, not disgracing the military. He took a knee for the injustice and police brutality. And he was called an SOB by the president. Roger Goodell, if you want to make this right, you call Colin Kaepernick. And if he doesn't get a quarterback job, you ought to make him the ambassador of race relations in the National Football League. Roger Goodell, your words are empty if you do not call Colin Kaepernick and bring him into a personal discussion and let the world hear you say, Colin, we were wrong. You were trying to get us this ahead of the game, but we didn't listen. Then Mitt Romney, thank you, Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney went out and protested, stating Black Lives Matter. They filmed him. They played it. They applauded Mitt Romney. And the White House secretary, she came on, fumbled, as she usually does, and said, attacking Mitt Romney for him marching and protesting at the behest of this administration. More rhetoric coming from this White House and this administration. So I have my response to the president's rhetoric. Let me give you what rhetoric stands for under this administration. R stands for the ridiculous statements that he made in his speech. Governors must dominate their cities to address this continued problem. This is still the United States of America. That's what R stands for. H stands for the hatred when you are not speaking out against the injustice of the 8 minutes and 46-second death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor at the hands of police whose life was being taken by his deed, you have hatred and you're perpetuating the problem. E stands for the equality that he does not have. So he has inequality. That he does not care about black and brown people. He does not care about our issues. We are meaningless to this administration. And I want everybody to understand that we are meaningless to this administration. T stands for the tyrant he really wants to be. He really wants this to be a dictator country. That's why he likes South Korea. Why he likes Russia. Dictators. That's really what he wants to be. A tyrant. O stands for the outlandish claims that he and his administration makes, that there's no systemic racism in police departments across this world. Yes, there is. R stands for the right-wing groups that he has charged, and he's incited them to violence because it moves his own personal agenda. We know he lies. We know he said he wasn't in the bunker. He was down there for a visit, checking things out. And then Attorney Barr came in and said, it got so terrible that the Secret Service said, let's take you down to the bunker. Just lied. Brush it off. Never takes responsibility. I stands for the inability for him to see that this country is hurting and does nothing to try to bring calm, does nothing to try to bring peace, and does nothing but stoke the violence that happens in this world. And then C stands for the calamity and colossal failure in leading this country. I'm mobilizing everyone I can for voter rallies, making sure that we have people registered to vote, making sure that they have rides to the poll, making sure they know where their polling place is. This is our time to rise up in vast majority, major numbers, and vote again for your city, your state, your local, and the national scene. We got to vote. We have to let our voice be heard. I heard a young lady say on CNN, we are tired of the injustice and the inequality. We are tired. You should be tired. Everyone should be tired of having the George Floyds come up consistently. The Breonna Taylor, the Freddie Gray, the Michael Brown, the list goes on. It's got to stop. It's not right. It's unjust. It's unfair. We watched George Floyd be laid to rest. And you remember his words. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's not about race. It's about racism. Listen, thank you so much. This is a special edition of Thomas Talks again. I'm your host, Dr. T.C. Thomas, where we hope to educate you, we hope to empower you, and we hope to uplift you. Remember, this is the first days of the best days of the rest of your life. God bless you all. Have a great day.